I jokingly called us a couple. My best friend squealed, finally, and it became real. I thought the biggest mistake I had ever made was accidentally sending a romantic text to my best friend. I was wrong. The biggest mistake was saying, well, I guess we're basically a couple anyway, in front of her entire family. Because the second those words left my mouth, my best friend Emma froze. Then she covered her face, jumped up from her chair, and squealed. Finally. Everyone at the dinner table went silent. I stared at her. She stared at me, and then her mother started clapping. That was the exact moment our 15-year friendship changed forever. Emma and I had been inseparable since college. We met during our first week when she accidentally took my seat in the lecture hall, looked at me, and confidently said, "You can sit somewhere else." I laughed. She didn't. 5 minutes later she apologized. And somehow, 20 years later, she was still sitting beside me. We had shared everything. Late-night conversations, terrible dates, job problems, family drama, birthdays, holidays, and countless arguments about which one of us was more stubborn. Everyone around us assumed we were secretly dating. Everyone except us. At least, that's what I thought. Emma had always been beautiful, but I had trained myself not to think about it that way. She was Emma, my person, my emergency contact, the woman who could walk into my apartment without knocking, steal food from my refrigerator, insult my haircut, and then sit beside me while I complained about my life. Dating her seemed impossible, because what if it ruined everything? One Friday evening, Emma invited me to her parents' house for dinner. "Please come," she said over the phone. "Why?" "My parents want to see you. They see me all the time." "Exactly. You're basically family." I smiled. "I'll come." When I arrived, Emma opened the door wearing a simple blue dress. She looked at me and smiled. "You're late." 3 minutes is late." I handed her a small gift. She looked at it. "You brought wine? Your father likes it." She raised an eyebrow. "You remembered?" "Of course." For some reason she smiled differently. Softer. "Come inside," she whispered. Her parents asked about my work. We talked about old memories. Emma kept teasing me about college. Then her father suddenly asked the question I had heard 100 times before. "So," he said, "are you two finally going to admit you're together?" I nearly choked on my drink. Emma laughed nervously. "Everybody knows." "Knows what?" Her mother smiled. "That you two belong together." I looked at Emma. She looked down at her plate. I decided to joke my way out of it. I leaned back and said, "Well, I guess we're basically a couple anyway." The room went silent. I laughed. "I'm kidding." But Emma didn't laugh. She stared at me like I had just confessed to something. Then suddenly she covered her face with both hands. Finally. I blinked. "What?" She jumped up from her chair. "I knew you'd say it eventually." Her mother started clapping. Her father laughed. I looked around completely confused. "What is happening?" Emma walked toward me. "You finally said it." I was joking. Her smile disappeared slightly. I wasn't. Those 4 words changed everything. I stopped smiling. Her parents suddenly became very interested in their plates. Emma took a breath. "I've been waiting for you to say something like that for years." My heart started pounding. "Emma." She shook her head. "No. Let me finish." She sat beside me. I didn't want to ruin our friendship. I was terrified that if I told you how I felt, you'd pull away. I couldn't speak. She continued. "Every time you dated someone, I told myself I was happy for you. Every time you talked about another woman, I smiled and pretended it didn't hurt." I stared at her. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because you never looked at me that way." I almost laughed. "Emma, I look at you every day." "Not like this." She reached for my hand, and suddenly every memory came rushing back. The way she always sat next to me, the way she remembered tiny details about my life, the way she got strangely quiet whenever I mentioned another woman. The way she once told me years ago, "If you're ever alone, I'll always be there." I had thought she meant friendship. Maybe I had been too afraid to understand. I looked into her eyes. "You're serious?" She nodded. "I've never been more serious." I swallowed. "Then why did you say finally?" She laughed through nervous tears. "Because I've been waiting forever." Her father suddenly stood up. "Should we leave you two alone?" "Dad," he grinned, "I've been waiting for this longer than both of you." Her mother laughed. Soon they disappeared into the kitchen. Emma and I were left sitting at the table. "Finally," she whispered, "you don't have to say anything." I looked at her. "No." She raised her eyes. "I do." I reached across the table and took her hand. "I think I've been in love with you for a long time." Her eyes filled with tears. "You think?" I smiled. "I'm still processing the best friend just confessed her love to me." She laughed. "So, what happens now?" I looked at her. "I don't know." She nodded. "Me neither." I squeezed her hand. "But I know one thing." "What?" "I don't want to pretend anymore." Her smile slowly returned. "Me neither." That night I drove her home. We sat in my car outside her apartment for almost 20 minutes. Neither of us wanted to get out. Finally, Emma opened the door. Then she stopped. She turned toward me. "Are we actually a couple now?" I smiled. "I guess we should probably find out." She laughed. Then she leaned closer and kissed my cheek. It was simple, soft, but somehow it felt bigger than any kiss I had ever experienced. "Good night," she whispered. "Good night." She walked toward her apartment, then turned around. "And don't change your mind tomorrow." "I won't." The next morning, I woke up to a text from her. "Emma, good morning, boyfriend." I stared at the screen, then smiled like an idiot. I typed back, "Me, good morning, girlfriend." 3 dots appeared immediately. "Emma, oh my God, we're really doing this." I laughed. "Me, apparently." Her reply came seconds later. "Emma, finally." And somehow, that word made my entire day. The first few weeks were strange. We had to learn how to be something other than best friends. We still argued about restaurants. She still stole my fries. I still made fun of her terrible taste in movies. But there were new things too. Holding hands. Sitting closer. Good morning texts. Long hugs. And the feeling that every ordinary moment suddenly meant something more. One evening, we walked through the park, where we had spent countless afternoons as friends. Emma stopped beside a bench. "Do you remember this place?" "Of course. This is where I almost told you." "Told me what?" She smiled. "That I loved you." "When?" "7 years ago." I stared at her. She nodded. "You were talking about a woman you liked, and you never said anything?" "No, because I was afraid of losing you." I stepped closer. "You didn't lose me." She smiled. "No. Somehow, I got you." I wrapped my arms around her. She rested her head against my chest. And for the first time, I understood something. Sometimes love doesn't arrive suddenly. Sometimes it has been standing beside you for years. You just have to stop being afraid enough to recognize it. A few months later, we returned to her parents' house for dinner. Her father opened the door. He looked at us holding hands. Then he grinned. "Well, look who finally figured it out." Emma rolled her eyes. "Dad." I laughed. Her mother hugged us both. At dinner, her father raised his glass. To finally. Everyone laughed. Emma looked at me. I squeezed her hand beneath the table. She whispered, "Still think we're just basically a couple?" I smiled. "No." "What are we?" I looked into her eyes. "We're real." She smiled, and then she leaned over and kissed me. Everyone at the table cheered. I laughed, because once upon a time, I had been terrified that falling in love with my best friend would destroy the most important relationship in my life. Instead, It turned out to be the thing that finally gave that relationship a name. And if someone asked me today, when I realized I loved Emma, I wouldn't know what date to give them. Maybe it was the first time she made me laugh. Maybe it was the first time she stayed when everyone else left. Maybe it was the 100th time she remembered something I'd forgotten about myself. Or maybe it was that night when I jokingly called us a couple, and she looked at me with tears in her eyes and whispered, "Finally." Because sometimes the person you've been searching for isn't waiting somewhere in the future. Sometimes they've been sitting beside you all along.